have, they'll have that as a resource. I think that's gonna be less of a cultural expectation too, truthfully. I mean, my iPad reads, my Kindle for iPad reads to me now if I let it. It does.
Right,
but I think what I would say to you is, to me, dyslexia is, while it's complicated, it's something that we're usually able to, the research on it is really pretty strong in terms of intervention, and we're able to move kids to a positive place. Most kids I see that's their single area, will not, like, will still be able to grow in curriculum pretty well. So we're getting there, and I mean, I think we'll have more to come on that.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, I know that we don't have copies of the agenda, and I knew that this wasn't the only thing we wanted to present on, and I just wanted to give a time check that it was 7:41.
I was going to ask to have somebody do that, and I forgot.
So, thank you. So I didn't realize that it's on the website, so maybe we can do cliff notes. Just go through it quickly.
Oh,
I guess I didn't realize we can, I should have realized.
Okay.
More.
So, hold on.
Do you want to do this one? Do you want to, is this something that you want to review? Yes, so.
Okay, so this is a slide on the current,
disability population?
Yeah. I just was looking the numbers to look right to me before. This is a slide that gives you the breakdown by disability area and by building of our special ed population across the district. So, number one, LD, I mean, that's just what I looked at, things that popped out to me. Number two, autism, and then about half the size of, separate number two, autism, is speech and language, and OHI, ADD. A couple things that just, developmental delay goes away, kids age out of it. The number of kids with speech and language, I think some of those may, if they're articulation kids or it's developmental not quite resolved, certainly may, no longer need special ed, but I think oftentimes those students may move to another disability area. It isn't an exact science, unfortunately, for us, so.
Nancy, these are 504 kids too? Or
No,
just IEP kids?
This is IEP students.
Including 18 to 22 in high school?
No,
That's up
Yep.
to high school.
Yep.
Yeah, high school.
Yep.
Just, Nancy, I know you're gonna talk about this in one of the slides, but, a parent just mentioned, does this include 504s? I just want to kind of make a clarifier here, is that 504s fall under the American with Disabilities Act. That's a regular education component, not special education. So 504s are not special education. They fall under the American with Disabilities Act, which is outside of the world of special education, IEPs and PPTs. It's oftentimes people think that 504s are part of or included in.
I didn't think that, I just wanted the clarification to make sure that those weren't, those numbers weren't thrown in there too.
Correct, okay.
Thanks,
Good. Yep, you got it.
Anybody wanted to ask or say about this as you look at it? The one thing other thing I would point out is that our numbers of students with emotional disturbance would say to me there's something we're not necessarily putting kids in the right label, because there shouldn't be 0 all the way through high school, frankly. And that's something we need to kind of investigate as to, I mean, it'd be great, I guess, if that's what it was, but I'm not sure if it's accurate, so that's something I'm wondering about. So this is our students who are currently in outplacements in magnet schools. Pretty small percentage. We're under the, for special ed, we're at about 12%, which is a little bit high for a group C school. Outplacements, we're at like the number that the state wants us to be at. And I know you guys don't care what the state wants us to be at, I can get that, but it's a benchmark for me of, are we in a best practice model, frankly. And the magnet schools is parent choice, so.
So I have a question about outplacements. So in the previous few years, there was a lot of efforts made to bring kids back into the district, and to try and get our outplacement numbers decreased. Is the current administration of like mine trying to decrease outplacements, or are they looking to increase those again, or keep it that steady, or what's the outcome they're looking for? I mean, obviously you want to place a child where they're appropriate, but there's a large range of discretion within that.
I don't think I would make a decision based on, I don't think I should have an opinion about we should lower, we should, I mean, I think if your numbers are really high, you have to look at it and say, are we doing what's right for the kids? Because, you know, and it's sort of multifaceted. Are we providing enough in-district supports? Are we offering enough opportunities for our kids to come back? I think the kids are very often well served in their home school, so that's why I'm kind of looking at you like, I can't give you I think it should be this way, I should be that, because I don't think that's my prerogative. I have to look at an individual child and advocate for what I think is the least restrictive environment for them. Yes. I'm not trying to give a non-answer, but that's like really how I feel about it.
You know, as another parent, I don't know, because, been in this for quite some time, and, I would hope that maybe a goal, one of the goals of many, that would be to provide what is necessary so that we can keep the kids within our district, rather than having to necessarily send them out of district.
There are kids we cannot educate.
No, I
Okay.
understand that.
Okay.
I understand that better than you think. The point is though, that I feel that sometimes there are kids that may not necessarily need to be outplaced, depending upon, listen, labels, nobody likes labels on their kids. I'll be honest with you, when my children were labeled, it was not a pleasant time. However, I was happy to get whatever was necessary in order to get the services. Because in the end, I don't care if they label them pink with polka dots, as long as they get what they need, okay? Because, I'm not the expert. And I did depend a lot on the school system. And I had absolutely no issues with the school. The school was very supportive of both of my kids. However, I have seen, it's been my experience, you're absolutely right. There are some children who the district it's not a possibility. They need a different,
Right.
Absolutely. They absolutely do. And it's in their best interest. However, and it's got to be a case-by-case thing. You can't just, it should be a case-by-case thing, absolutely. But I have also seen it on the other end of things, and I question sometimes, and it doesn't necessarily always go. I'm not trying to sound like this, all pro every, administrator, but sometimes, okay, I think that it's not always, I guess, when you're dealing with parents and you're dealing with administration and what's maybe in the best interest, there's always a conflict. And I think that's an issue, because parents may not see it one way as administration does. It's hard. It's a very difficult path, because as a parent, you're much more emotional versus, I think, administratively, they're thinking about what's really going to work well for the child, okay? So I just question that sometimes, okay, we might be able to, and I think it would be a step in the right direction, especially those kids, for example, who are coming back, okay, which is a sign that maybe we are able to work with them after, if need be. But, and I'm trying to choose my words carefully too, because I certainly don't want to get anybody bent out of shape, okay? But I do think that sometimes it would be good if that would be a goal, because that's what we really ultimately, don't we wanna try?
I think
Because people
I think-
move to an
I
area
think
for a
Diane worked
specific
very hard
reason.
on that last year, to work to support students in, you know, I mean, I've heard about it from her in the meetings, and I've heard about it from parents who are very appreciative of the time she spent with them. And I don't wanna say that that's not my goal, I hope I didn't come across as that way, but,
No. But I think I think we talk about transparency, and I think that,
I'm pretty passionate about least restrictive environment. for
Right.
kids, whatever it needs to be, and have had the opportunity to be in a lot of outplacements and see what they're like, and follow their IEPs, because I did it for 7 years. So I guess I have knowledge, that I bring to the table, and my role is to be, you know, an advocate for that, foster independence and future adulthood for kids. What's gonna work to get them there. It's a bummer when a kid cannot be educated in their home school. It really is. 504 numbers. One of the things I'm gonna be looking at, we're gonna be doing some 504 training with people, is, do all our students who have life-threatening health needs have 504 plans? Because it's really probably a best practice piece for us to consider. The difference between an individual health care plan and a 504 plan is that a 504 plan, while it isn't the same level as special ed, it's correct, because there's no direct services attached to it. It is more of a legal agreement, and I think that if anybody has a child with a life-threatening allergy, we should have a legal agreement. What's the job?
So you wanna put a peanut allergy with an EpiPen on a 504? And what if they have an IEP? Would you do both?
Nope. Put it in the PPT.
That's different, just so you know, because that's something that used to be,
I think it's too,
that a kid had an IEP and a life-threatening
do an
allergy,
individual
and
health
you
care
needed an air
plan.
conditioner in the room, and because of an allergy or some kind of special accommodation, and they would,
So
How do
there's
you have
only
both?
one kid, so we put it all in the, health is an area on pages 4 and 5. I think there's kids that need an individual health care plan because the details of it may need to be spelled out more. So like the kid who's a diabetic, you wouldn't put all those action steps in the PPT, but there should be a plan that the nurse has of what we do, so. I had another slide that I wanted to get in, and you saw I was having some technical problems, so I apologize.
Which one is it? Is it in here?
No, it didn't get out there, so, I can go into the other presentation, though. What I'll do is, and I apologize, I really had every intention. I came in this morning, and I was in a 3-hour meeting I didn't expect, and there were crises in a couple of buildings, and, they keep me busy around here, so, I had a day that looked like I was gonna get things done, so, after we finished our leadership meeting, I had to call a parent, and then I had to talk to the superintendent, and then I had to get here, so, I promise I'm working hard for you every minute I'm here, but my homework is no go, so this is my apology. I went over the testing, how our kids did in, this is, in special ed. Karen, when she reviewed how students did at her board report on the Spedpac testing, talked about the intensive needs students. I broke it out by special ed students. And I know that, I've heard from, several parents, that the number 0 made them really, unhappy. And it makes me really unhappy too. I mean, all these numbers are not what we want them to be.
Nancy, can you give us a scale, because obviously not every special ed kid is gonna achieve grade level, so,
No.
like, when we see a 20%, of 15 kids,
And is this
What-
last year's test scores? So
Yes.
this would be our last year third graders who are now fourth graders?
Yes, yes. So can I just add some numbers to, I'm gonna have, and again, I apologize, I'm gonna have to do it. I wanted to give you the numbers for the district average. 68, 60, 76, 79, 84, 63, 65. So the range there was 60 to 84% kids score.
We're not on probation with these numbers?
I'm just gonna chime in. So one of the things, this is the results of the Smarter Balance assessment. And we do look at other districts that are in our DERG with like a demographic reference group. So you will see similar patterns in other similarly situated districts. The gap between students receiving special services and the regular ed peers. This is a major focus, not only of the district, but of the state, to make sure that we do everything we can to close the gap. So when you mention probation, the state of Connecticut doesn't have a probation for school districts, but this is a major focus of the state and of districts to really look at this data so it drives our decision making, and we use all of the data in conjunction to make a budget that is going to do everything to have students achieve at the highest level possible.
So probation might be the wrong term. What's the term? We've been on it before. What is it?
Well, a corrective action of some sort, or
Yeah.
are we gonna be given funds, because this was, I think, alarming to a lot of people when they saw this. Is there anything we qualify for to be able to get those numbers up? When you have 3 grades, 3, 8, and 11 at 0, that's really, and for math, that's really
That's
scary.
usually a red flag for the state. So when they're looking at this, there's some, again, probation might not, we were on it at McAllister at some point.
But I also remember that during the BOE meeting, you said, you gave us numbers for, comparable schools in the DERG, and we were
Lower than the DERG.
much lower than the DERG, and this Ellington.
So the DERG
Torrington,
scores, the
those-
thing you need to know about the DERG scores though is like, there's no way I can go on and get their special ed scores. So we're not comparing apples to apples, we're comparing to their intensive needs students. And Brian, intensive needs is,
Free and reduced lunch, English language learner, special education. Those are the major categories. And the other thing, looking at the DERGs, when you're comparing grade levels, you'll look at the populations, 3rd grade, for example, 6 students. So when you compare 6 students in one district to 4 districts in another, it's very hard to compare. I think what we need to do, and we are doing, and Nancy and I have talked about this, is look at overall trend data. Another challenging piece with looking at this standalone Smarter Balance is this was the first year that Smarter Balance results are live, so it's a baseline. There are many things that go into Smarter Balance. It's on a computer, which is very new. So this
Even
is
having seen my regular ed students' Smarter Balance scores, they were way lower than any of the past
and I think the
standardized
states,
testing.
if you go on and read on the state's website and what they say about Smarter Balance, they very much talk about this as a baseline. I don't think that the scores were where they wanted them to be. Because it's a new test that's aligned to Common Core, and Common Core is something people have only in the past few years been working on. I mean, it's really important because it's what the, I don't know how to say this right, the job skills that our kids are going to need for the future is going to be problem solvers. So they're going to, and we think about that in all of our jobs and how much we do it now. It's going to be even more need, and we've had to kind of figure some of that out. We are still not just in Suffield, but we're capacity building staff to a place to be better teachers of it, because we all learned the way, our staff all learned the way we did, which wasn't that way, which was about learning content. Most of what we do now is about process.
Is that, I do agree, I mean, I think you're taking a snapshot at people, and you're also looking at one, component, right, which is not the most reliable way to look at it, which, I think it's alarming, and I think we have to at least prevent something that's close. So when you look at this, I think you see 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, students are, at least some of them, are at grade level. I wouldn't be too proud of the fact that, 15% there. But then we look at 8th and 11th, and that 0 is huge, and then you look into ELA, 11th grade, 7%. So and the correct report, did speak very much in depth about the high school and about the deficiencies within the high school and about the alignment going on up through pre-K through 12 and that it falls apart. So again, I think as much as it's a snapshot, it's realistic in terms of the past leading into the present.
And the same night that I presented, is that the same night or was it the week before? Brian did his board report on curriculum. Do you have anything you want to say about that?
I just think alignment, like Ms. Davis is talking about, that's a high sense of urgency from a curriculum standpoint for all students, wherever they fall in the Suffield Public Schools, to make sure that we know how students are going to perform on a accountability test before they take it. So let me kind of unpack that a little bit. One of the things that we're really looking at is progress monitoring. So progress monitoring is having intentional assessments that are given to students receiving special education, regular education, but specifically for special education students. What's our progress monitoring system? So we're getting these little dipsticks along the way to see if students are progressing. And there's many different resources we're exploring. We're looking at Ames Web as a progress monitoring system for special education students. So it will give us trend lines where special education students should be along a trajectory versus where they are. So we get to see that gap, and we can make informed decisions on their progress so we can intervene and make sure that they're performing as well as possible. So that ties into alignment, because we want to look at progress monitoring from special education students as a continuum, so we see progress from grade to grade, from school to school, and we know that there's work to do within the district with transitions from Spalding to McAllister. I've talked to the Principal Dunn and Principal Carpenter Snow about what can we do thinking ahead to really tighten up our transitions, and that is a symbol of alignment of the curriculum. There's just a bunch of work to do. So I mean, I'm kind of talking as an educator, trying to push back on me or ask questions if you need me to break something out of edu-speak.
I'm so glad you asked. So, I mean, as a parent, I have two questions about this. So one is that obviously the individual, data for progress isn't going to be available to us as parents, but is there some way we can create some transparency about the data in aggregate about how our special needs parents, how our special education students are doing progress-wise?
Yeah, I guess.
And are there assessments that allow us to have an apples? I get the aspect. Numbers are hard to retrieve and the data isn't available. I'm not sure. I can't call them the district and just ask them to provide the data that we have. Are there comparisons that we can get that sort of give us a frame for like, hey, how's our district doing these, compared to comparable districts with our special needs students? Do those statistical measures exist, and can we get them? And then on an inside district basis, do those statistical measures exist for tracking progress, and can they be given to us as parents?
Yes, on an internal basis, progress monitoring, like formative assessment, summative assessment, any assessment your child is taking in school, you can view that as a parent. So I think.
But I mean, in aggregate, can I see how the district is doing? What can I get for my child?
Yeah. So our current assessments make it difficult to articulate that, and what we want to do, because transparency has been talked about several times. We want to make all of our data transparent, so you can see from a district lens. Here's our progress monitoring data for our special education population. Here's our progress monitoring data for our students who are receiving intervention. Here's our STAR math. Everybody get their STAR math report, right? Here's our STAR math data as a district. Here's our, if we have a DRP, degrees of reading power. Here's how we're performing as a district in each grade level, and then break it down by different populations of students, whether it's special education or free or reduced lunch. We want to make the data as transparent as possible, not only internally, but also with our community. So we build all our strategic thinking based on data, all right? And also listening, also watching, observing, and we need to make sure that we have budgets that support the best possible outcome for students. And we use a lot of data to drive our decision making. In the landscape of education, we had different assessments. Like education is changing drastically in a short period of time, but we're very committed to being transparent.
Quick question. I know you're talking about progress monitoring and looking for systems that we want to use. Did we have these before? Like, have this existed before? Have we had a way to monitor the progress of children throughout grade levels? Did that exist before in our district?
I think there's holistic efforts to be made, that have been made for progress monitoring. I think there's a lot of good work. As a district, we need to provide direction for our staff.
I just wanted to know if there was a system. Like you said, we're looking at bringing a system in. Was there one before?
And I'm gonna just make sure, I'm gonna check in with Nancy on this, but we have not had like a formal system such as AimsWeb that's been tracking progress monitoring. There are several different progress monitoring techniques that faculty use and staff use. So it's not, I mean, when you're saying, is that a no, I'm saying we haven't had AimsWeb. We don't have AimsWeb in the district right now, but I'm uncomfortable saying there's no progress monitoring. There is progress monitoring. We need to make sure it's systematic, intentional, and it's vertical.
John's asking about, I don't know, John, if I'm saying this right, but is it about vertical and how kids are doing?
No, I wanted to know if there was an actual system in place. The answer was no. We have monitoring techniques that they probably used before. But to say that we've done that exceptionally well, I would actually question, but that's for another time.
We don't have anything that like takes it and puts it into like a database where we can look at it from a database, but we do progress monitoring. What we do is we look at it from like a grade level base, a school level base, an individual base for students. We certainly, don't have like an AimsWeb, which Brian's talking about, which will take it and then you can do it more computer related, and so
It's more powerful.
It's really more powerful unless things will slip through the cracks of people not comparing data.
We've explored different programs throughout the year, such as AimsWeb. We also explored Inform. We looked at those. That's one of the reasons why we got the STAR last year, as well as knowing that we needed some sort of progress monitoring for the math, because it was an area that we didn't have to be able to use like a universal screener and universal progress monitoring for kids.
So one of the things Brian mentioned was the transition piece. That is one area we had actually had some improvement upon. So are we gonna build on that, or are we gonna start from scratch?
Well, I wouldn't start from scratch if something was working.
In my opinion, because I've been in Spalding for years now, and I love Spalding, I feel like Spalding has really worked on their special needs program from pre-K up, and I think the program is working, and I think it's phenomenal. I think what scares me as a mom is hearing that we're going to have a baseline here, and we're going to start over, and we're going to build from the ground up again, and my kid is going to time out. He's going to hit the next school district. It's for the mom. And I'm worried that the transitions won't be in place for him, that he won't get what he needs when he transitions out of Spalding. I never want him to leave Spalding. I'm afraid of what happens when he's
Scott, I want you to put that,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Unfortunately, everyone hasn't had the same experience as you. So, while your worry is, I'm afraid they're gonna ruin something that my kid's doing so well with, my experience is it's totally broken and it's been one disaster over another. And there's pockets of okayness, but there is another disaster. And if I'm not on top of it at Spalding, then my kid would have fallen through the cracks. So I think that what I'm looking for from the district is confirmation and validation that something is broken so that we can fix it. That's my fear. Although I'm not saying, and I don't want to take away from there are things that are working, and we don't want to start from scratch, but I think there's room for both.
So let me go back, can I go back to Doriana's question tonight, John?
No, go ahead.
Doriana, I mean that sincerely, that if there's something that's been working, I know that was a question
question when I was interviewed, how do you feel about transitions? And I talked about the work I had done. Do you remember that? You know, I have heard some, you know, what has worked. I'd love to, I mean, we can put that on our agenda to talk about what you guys think helped make a successful transition for January. And talk about what that looks like to you and what thoughts you have about things that haven't worked. So, I mean, that's what the purpose of this is to give you guys an opportunity to give us ideas. I mean, and to give us your feedback, because I realize that we're new and that there is a lot to be done. And I'm thrilled to have all your minds on that. So please know that's how I feel about. You know, I appreciate that question. We gotta have a better answer for you, and we've gotta take care of where you're at right now. And I know, Dawn, is that you or for?
No,
Oh, did you have a question too?
I did, well, I had a statement.
Well, you're on that note, Nancy, I think there's a lot of work to do, and this is a really high-level discussion about, like, maybe, you know, way out from math. We have a lot to cover, I think, especially at Spalding level. And I'm not saying that there aren't other things that need to be fixed at the middle school and the McAllister high school level, but, you know, some of you in this room have already been down that road. We're trying to stop the bleeding. So I would like to know from you if you would be receptive to meeting with maybe some smaller groups. I think it's really ambitious to cover everybody's questions and concerns in 1 hour, 1 hour a month. Would you be willing to meet with like maybe a Spalding group or McAllister group, middle school?
Well, why don't we, but let's
I'm not saying it has to
by,
be permanent.
let's
like-
start by everybody getting to hear sort of, what I feel like I have.
Let's start with when is a good meeting time, because this is a better group than we've seen in years. So are you people gonna come at night to night meetings, or are you gonna come during the day when we usually meet? Because if you're not, we'll move them to the nights to see your faces again.
We'll do both. I work in the day, so I
So
can't
let's
come
start there,
in the
because
daytime.
that's a really let's put that, well, listen, let's get back to that before we end. But, but I'm not sure if that's, like, listen tonight to what we're gonna say about what I understand at this point in time and what ideas we have. And Brian has said the word budget twice to you, and I wanna say the word budget to you too, because next, the 15th, is the board, the superintendent is presenting the budget to the board, right? Okay, to the board, of course. At the middle school in the auditorium. So that will be a place for us, for you to see the articulation of where we're asking for different resources.